Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. This is tremendous to have this turnout this evening. I want to first introduce myself. My name is John Gartrell. I'm the director of the John Hope Franklin Research Center for African American History and Culture in the Rubenstein Library at Duke University. I've been given the charge this evening to give an overview and a brief introduction of the program that we're going to be having this evening. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to the folks here at North Carolina Central, particularly Professor Jarvis Hall and his cohorts. We are so appreciative of you opening your doors for us to have this event here this evening. I would say maybe a little over a year ago, we started having events here at Central as a part of the partnership that we've been having at Duke between ourselves, the SNCC Legacy Project, the Duke University Libraries, and the Center for Documentary Studies. And it's just been wonderful to have a chance to come over to Central and share with you all remembrances of the movement from the veterans who participated themselves. So thank you for opening your doors and thank you for coming out this evening. So just to give folks a little bit of an overview of the project and why we're all gathered here tonight. A little over 3 years ago, partners from the SNCC Legacy Project, the Duke University Library, and the Center for Documentary Studies at Duke sat around a table and we got to talking about ways that we could all contribute to a project that would help preserve and tell SNCC's history, not necessarily and not solely from the perspective of history, but also pushing it forward and how that history can and has influenced activism today. And that conversation has manifested itself in what we call a documentary website called the SNCC Digital Gateway. And you can find it at sncdigital.org. But that website, on that website, you will find stories of many of the folks on the panel this evening, along with many other members of SNCC, mentors, local people that worked alongside that really pushed the movement in a direction that it needed to go, all driven by young people. And it's great to see so many sort of 19, 20, 21-year-old folks because y'all was them and them is y'all, right? So, and I get that from you all. So, and hopefully you will see yourselves in some of the stories that are shared here this evening. So for the occasion, we are here to talk about music and the movement. And our esteemed panel, which will be introduced in just a moment, is just going to share with you some reflections of their time in the movement and how music and really SNCC above really any of the other civil rights organizations really placed an emphasis on the black aesthetic. You think about SNCC, you think about voting rights, you think about grassroots organizing, but you cannot talk about SNCC without music and art and literature, poetry. It was such an important thread to their activism, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to learn more about that. So just to give you that project has been going on for the last 2.5 years. We're coming up to its completion in May of 2018, but the website will live on for as long as Duke has said that it will live on. And I encourage you all to go to sncdigital.org to learn more about these stories. So for the course of this evening, after I put the microphone down, I will turn it over to Charlie Cobb, who will be the moderator for this evening. He will introduce our panelists. Following that, we will have a selection by the North Carolina Central Vocal Jazz Ensemble and Gospel Choir, and then we will go right into our panel discussion. And before I close, I want to say that there are some materials at the back table for sale this evening. We have a book by Brother Hollis Watkins, and we have 2 Freedom Singers and Freedom Song CDs available for sale once the event has concluded. So thank you again, and I'll turn it over to Charlie.
Let's see, I guess I better use good evening. First, before introducing the panel, a few thoughts. Not long, because I'm a writer and I'm better at the keyboard than at the microphone. But an important thing to understand about this panel is, aside from music, everybody here has a memory of jail and attempts to terrorize us with jail. And song was vital. It was how Charlie Cobb knew Hollis Watkins was alive, or Chuck Neblett was alive, or Bettie Mae Fikes was whole, or Candie Carawan was whole. The song really helped us in a lot of ways keep our sanity. It also was what helped us root us in the community. I mean, one of the qualities about SNCC was that it embedded itself in the black community. It was one of the things that made SNCC unique, living with families and people in the black community. And in that sense, whether song was coming from the church or coming from the juke joint, it was a way that helped root us in the community. Now, thinking about freedom song, which is really what we're here to talk about, it reminds me, and I want to say this before introducing the panel, that the core of American music, American song, and the core of black music, which is what I think defines American music, is the idea of freedom. And whether you're looking at black life in the 15th century or black life in the 21st century, the idea of freedom has always been very much integrated in song, whether it's the chants of groups like Black Lives Matter or BYP 100, or whether it's the music of SNCC in the 1960s. I want you to think about that, or think of that as you listen to the people I'm now going to introduce. Starting on my left here, Chuck Neblett comes off the campus of the University of Southern Illinois in Carbondale, Illinois. Made his way into the movement through campus protests and then community protests and eventually into involvement in SNCC, and was one of the founding members of the SNCC Freedom Singers. And I should say, before going further, I'll ask each one of the panelists to elaborate in their own presentations to the extent that they wish on their movement background and biographies and all of that, as well as their comments and reflections on the music. Hollis Watkins, whose book is in the back, and you should read it, Brother Hollis, Sankofa of a Movement Man. Hollis was the first of the young Mississippians to commit full-time to the movement in Mississippi, specifically through work with SNCC, and has continued to work through an organization he founded and is very important in Mississippi today, Southern Echo. And Hollis is also one of the well-known voices in the movement. Bettie Mae Fikes was just, how old are you, 16? Bettie Mae from Selma, Alabama, was 16 years old as she made her way into the movement with varying levels of support from family. And Bettie Mae, I would argue, is one of the most powerful voices of song that you will hear. In some ways, she redefined, and maybe she'll talk about this, she redefined what movement singing was. Candie Carawan was an exchange student from California at Fisk University when the sit-ins broke out, and became a part of that sit-in movement, but also became a singing voice along with her husband, Guy Carawan, who played a major role in the way the song "We Shall Overcome" made it into the movement in the 1960s. Also, and maybe Candie will talk about this, brings a great depth of understanding about the broader influences, such as Johns Island in South Carolina, and how that affected and shaped the movement, particularly the singing of freedom songs. Because remember, there was movement before there was SNCC. And those movements had song, and they influenced SNCC. And Candie has comments that I hope she will elaborate on about that. And Worth Long, who was one of SNCC's leaders and a native of this city, lived not too far from this campus, is perhaps, I will, speaking personally, will say maybe the most knowledgeable person that I know when it comes to black song and black culture. If you want to get at the depth of black song and black culture, Worth Long here is the go-to guy. And I won't even presume to make a suggestion about how and what he should present to this audience. So I'm going to start over here with Chuck. I will say, you all know what I'm meaning, in terms, if you all will remember what we did this morning, start sort of biographically, but expanded some in terms of how you make your way to song. And first, the ensemble is, I know they're gone and sing, y'all.
Thank you.
As they're coming up, I just wanted to welcome the panel. We're honored to have you here, and we're excited to learn from you. We are from the Department of Music here at North Carolina Central University, and it's a combined group of the university choir and the NCC Vocal Jazz Ensemble. We'll be joined by one of our instrumentalists, Trey, Billy Thomas on drums. We're going to sing "Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around."
What would happen, just a minute, what would happen if they came back and just did one verse of that and we all participated? Yeah. Could we do that? Yeah. I wonder what would happen.
Don't start no fire now.
That was wonderful.
Before Chuck speaks, I'd just like to thank these young people here for what they gave us this evening.
Yeah, you started something. Getting us ready to go out and hit the street. You know, my name is Charles Neblett, and I got into the movement from Cairo, Illinois, from Carbondale, really. I was in school there at SIU. And I like to say that my family was always involved in the movement in some way. My father was born in 1887. And he died in 93 at 106 years old. So he had a lot of stories to tell. And my mother was a singer. She was a great singer. She was a soprano. And my father was a guitarist. He had a great guitar. He played jazz, he played gospel, blues. And the only reason he stopped, he was very religious, and he said every time he picked up that guitar and played, the blues was on him. And he stopped playing. He stopped playing at clubs. He just stopped playing altogether. He played for us around the house. But while I was at school at SIU, they had quite a few blacks on campus. And I organized a lot of black people to protest on that campus because they were segregating in housing and so forth. But when it came down to it, the kids started crying, saying they couldn't do it because that was the first time that anyone in their families had ever gone to college, and if they messed up and got kicked out of college, that it wasn't going to work. It was 4 of us. We just wrote a scandal sheet about what the president was doing, what the dean of men was doing. It was true what he was doing, hanging out in the black community, going with black ladies and so forth. We had it all on a scandal sheet. We scattered it all over campus one morning about 4 o'clock. And when we got back to campus the next day, they was waiting for us. They know who it was. Somebody had squealed on us, somebody talked. And they knew exactly who it was. And he brought us in his office, the president. And he asked us who was doing all this writing. It cracked me up because one of the guys with me, he was telling the president he was flunking English, he had to do old papers and all kind of thing. He didn't have no time to write no papers, so I just laughed. But I told him that we weren't interested in who wrote the paper. We were interested in the problems that we was having on that campus because he was discriminating. We talked about the housing. He said, that's what we're concerned about. We ain't concerned about nobody writing papers. That's what we're concerned about. And the guy actually listened, and he said, if I take care of this next semester, will you guys behave yourselves? And I was shocked. He said, I said, if you stop this mess, next semester I will take care of it. We said, yeah. He said, do we have a deal? We said, yeah, we got a deal. And he did it. And we moved from there and went down to Cairo, John O'Neill, myself, and a couple more guys. Went down to Cairo, Illinois, and started a movement down there. And let me tell you, that was the meanest place. This is Illinois. That was one of the meanest places I've ever been in. And that's the first time I went to jail in Cairo, Illinois. And I went about 5 times, because every time I'd get out, we get in a demonstration, they pick on us. We're going back to jail. So, but anyway, from Cairo, Illinois, in fact, we demonstrated at the swimming pool how bad it was. Kids would die drowning in the Mississippi River because there was a rough, it was currents in it, and all kind of currents. And our kids would drown because it's the only place they had to swim. 2 or 3 people a year would die. And we demonstrated, try to open up the swimming pool, the public pool, for black kids to swim in. They wouldn't do it. We climbed the fence. Chico got in, my brother. He put a hat on his head and pulled it down. He like a white boy. He went, he went in, and as soon as he got in, they realized he was a black kid, and he went and jumped right in that pool, jumped in the pool. And they was going after him, and I was going over the fence. I was going over that fence because I had my brother over there and gonna get him. And I looked back, I jumped on the ground, I looked back and that whole fence had turned black. All the black kids was coming over that fence. We jumped in the pool. Clothes and all. And the police, and the white kids ran out. They got out of that pool. And the police was trying to get us out. We said, you come in here and get us. We ain't going out. And the police decided they were going to come in that water after us. And, but anyway, before they would desegregate that school, they filled it up with concrete. They filled it up with concrete. And it's that way today. And after that, we demonstrated and we had a movement going on in Cairo. They told us, you better not come to Missouri. That was a threat. I mean, they come out and told us, you come across this bridge over into Missouri, you're going to have it. So Charles Dunlap and myself decided we'd go to Missouri. So we went across and went to Missouri. And it so happened, we ran into a sheriff there. He was rich. He didn't have nothing else to do but be the sheriff. And he told us that I don't see it coming, y'all haven't demonstrated long ago. He said, it's good people here. I know. He said, all the good people in my jail. He says, I'm with you. He said, but they told me to keep you in my jail. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep you in my jail. And I went to St. Louis with him. They kept prisoners. He came back and made them people serve me. I was nervous. Made them serve me. I wouldn't order nothing that I couldn't see. And the only thing I could see was coffee. And then they asked me, how do you like your coffee? It really mean. I said, I like it black and sweet, like I like my women. And they cracked up. They laughed. They even laughed at that. They brought me my coffee. And another time, the sheriff would take me to weigh cotton for him. He had a big plantation if I wanted to get out of jail, because they told me the only way I'd get out of that jail was a promise to leave town. And I wasn't going to leave town. And I was weighing cotton for him. An old lady come up there with 50 pounds of cotton. I put 100 pounds on the buck. I had them black people scared to bring me their cotton because they didn't know what was going to happen. And when I did, I inflated everything. And when the sheriff came back and looked at his book, said, you got me, didn't you? I said, you right. These people are breaking their backs, picking your cotton. You ain't paying them no more than this. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. He said, I might be ashamed of myself, but you ain't wearing no more cotton for me. So that's the only thing that broke open that movement down there is when the people went back from that cotton field and told the public what I had done. And they said they thought they knew we were serious. And that movement started, and I finally got out of jail. But then I ran across snake people. I ran across Cordell and a lot of people in Cairo, Illinois. And but they came to Missouri. It was Jim Foreman, Paul Brooks, and some more, Drubador Smith. And they asked me to be a field secretary for SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and to come to Chicago and help them out in a thing they was promoting called the Gospel for Freedom. And that's when I went to Chicago and met all the rest of these Hollis Watkins and so forth from Mississippi, the Peacocks and so forth. And we started singing, and I helped put it together, and we sang up there and went on down to Mississippi. Going down there, the guys was teasing me and telling me I was too middle class, and I wasn't gonna make it. And I was looking at them, if you make it down there, I'm sure I can. And but sure enough, when I got down there and saw the house we were staying in with those double-aught buckshots in the doors and the walls, and and I said, whoa, what did I get into? But anyway, that's when I started working in Mississippi. But while I was there, Jim Foreman called and asked me if I would sing with a group called the Freedom Singers, that they wanted to put together a group of people to sing the songs that we always sing as freedom songs. And really, they wanted to put together, we wanted to be a motivator, not singers, not entertainers, but be organizers. We want to organize through the song to raise money and to recruit people. So that's what we did. We went on the road and we went down there to organize people. And we took us to Newport Jazz Festival, the Newport Folk Festival, the Carnegie Hall. We went everywhere, the Cobo Hall in Detroit. And we sang everywhere. We sang at house parties. Everywhere we get a venue, we sang and carry the message of the movement through song. And the thing about the music, that you could get the spirit of that movement through the music. You get the spirit of it. And the song you're singing, about Turn Me Around, you get the spirit of that. It's got a spirit to it. And not only did it give us courage when we were singing in the South, talking about ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, it gave people courage up here to do something in the North, to do something. And it was a great motivator and an organizing tool. That's how we used the music. And we took that music everywhere. And that was the point, the high point of our involvement, was getting everybody involved in the singing. And from there, from the music, that was it. And then that song that you sing, Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around. We sang that, a lot of people would sing that song when we came up against still like insurmountable odds that people be waiting for you. And the only way we can motivate ourselves to really face off on all these odds was singing Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around. And we get through singing that song, people had enough courage to face that danger, convinced that ain't nobody gonna let nobody turn me around. And that's how powerful the songs was. And we had other songs. We had a song that we sang to people who we call Uncle Toms and Nervous Nellies. You know, some black people just weren't gonna act right. They weren't gonna agree, they're just scared. And women, they get nervous, and we call them Nervous Nellies. And we had a song that Matthew wrote called Uncle Tom's Prayer. And it went like this. I'm an Uncle Tom, Lord, that's what the people say. But I ain't no Uncle Tom, Lord, I'm just a little afraid. So help me, Lord, to stand up and be a man. And I'll fight segregation as long as I can. Oh, what about my house, Lord? What will I do? You know I want my house, Lord. And though I want my house, Lord, you know I really do. So help me, Lord, to stand up and be a man. I'll fight segregation as long as I can. Oh, what about my job, Lord? What can I do? You know if I walk that line, Lord, you know that I am through. So help me, Lord, to stand up and be a man. And I'll fight segregation as long as I can.
First, giving honor to the Almighty. It is such a pleasant privilege for me to be here with you tonight. And the light glows even brighter for me tonight because I got somebody in the house that I know got my back, if nobody else other than them have my back. Not talking about my wife, because she's here, and I know all of that because she's got that, but I have Hollis here tonight. Not this Hollis, I got myself, but I got son Hollis Jr., his wife, 2 children, and his mother-in-law. So I want you to see my son and his family. He caught you all, gotcha that time, gotcha. He's run all over this area, running with the Durham Striders. And he's still here. And he ran track, the high school. What's the name of the high school? Hillside. So I had a lot of interest here. So I'm thankful that they are here with us tonight. I am the youngest of 12 children. My parents were sharecroppers when I was born. I was one of those who was not supposed to have made it, not to make anything of myself. I was one of those was given that diagnostic because of the money that my family made. See, when I first enrolled in Tougaloo College in Mississippi, my parent made less than $700 per year. But thank God, I made it. And as others of us out here who may be given negative thoughts, but you can make it. The whole thing about being poor never run across my mind or our family's mind, because every week we fed the poor by delivering baskets and boxes of food for people to have to eat. Now, I got involved with the civil rights movement at the age of 17 with the NAACP Youth Chapel. And then at the age of 19 is when I got involved with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, better known as SNCC. When I looked at what was happening in my community, I realized the church was the most important and largest institution in the community. So I paid notice to what the church was doing. One of the things I saw in the church down there was that a lot of singing took place. It seemed to have motivated people to do things that needed to be done. My family, most everybody in my family could sing, so it was expected that I sang. I remember when I was about 3 years old, my daddy used to point me out like I pointed my son out and said, "That's my baby right there. I'm gonna ask him to come on up and be with the rest of us, and if he feel like singing, I want him to sing." That's where I got my start in terms of singing. We use music as an instrument to bring people together, to motivate people to do things that would improve the community. Yes, there were a lot of the well-known people that we know in reference to the movement that I met, worked with. Some of them I still work with now, a few that's still around. But I just want to say that there's a lot of things I could say and talk about, but I don't want to do that, because you may have something that's more important to talk about or want to hear from me than that which I'm about to give you. So I'm not going to do a lot of talking, because if you got some questions about whatever in reference to the civil rights movement, I want to be able to try to answer those, and we can move further along. However, since you stirred the pot and got the spirit moving, I'm going to ask you to join in with me, and we sing a couple verses of a freedom song. Some of us refer to this song as Freedom Come and It Won't Be Long. Others refer to it as Calypso Freedom. So, how many of you know that song? Don't take
The banana boat song.
the banana boat song. We say that because the person we got the song from, he sang the banana boat song. See, in his song, he said, Deo, he said, Deo, hey, daylight come and me wanna go home. But we said, freedom, give us freedom, hey, freedom come and it won't be long. And then I'm gonna put one or two verses. Can we do that? All right. Freedom, give us freedom. Hey, freedom come and it won't be long. Well, I took a little trip on the Greyhound bus. Yay, freedom come and it won't be long. Just to fight discrimination and this we must. Hey, freedom come and it won't be long. Freedom, freedom, hey, freedom come and it won't be long. Well, some says Peter and some says Paul. Freedom come and it won't be long. Well, it's only one God that made us all. Hey, freedom come and it won't be long. Freedom, freedom, freedom come and it won't be long. Well, if you don't believe that I've been to hell, freedom come and it won't be long. Just follow me down to that Parchment jail. Freedom come and it won't be long. Freedom, freedom, hey, freedom come and it won't be long. For those that don't know about Parchment Jail, it is the Mississippi State Penitentiary. It is the place where I spent 55 days in maximum security unit on death row for attempting to get our people registered to vote. Thanks for being here tonight. Just keep on keeping on.
Good evening. Now, I don't want you guys to sit here quietly. Once upon a time, I was like you, young, and they used to say, full of fluid and ready to do it. And to get ourselves ready to go to jail. Have you ever prepared yourself to go to jail? We even prepared ourselves to die for all mankind. And to get hyped up in the basement of First Baptist Church, they were hollering. I'm sure you've heard it many, many times. What you want? You haven't heard it. Freedom. We used to screen 15, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old students from R.B. Hudson High School. And we'd scream out, what you want? Freedom. The recall, thank you. They don't know yet. You're still looking for freedom. What you want?
Freedom.
What you want?
Freedom.
And when you want it?
Now.
Whoa, this little light of mine, well, whoa, this little light of mine, come on. I'm gonna let it shine. My Lord, this Thank you. The difference between now and then, even if we didn't know the song, our spirit was so high. We were ready to go to jail. We were fighting for freedom. We were fighting for the right to vote. We weren't even old enough to vote. We were laying the foundations for you. And you are here to build off that foundation. And today when I say, what you want, I don't hear no reply back. I said, something is wrong here. 15-year-old little girl, Bettie Mae Fikes, I bring you greetings from Selma, Alabama, by the way of Los Angeles, California. I've been fighting for freedom a long time, and I ain't got tired yet. Our songs were mostly from the church. I come from a line of good gospel singers, preachers. My mother was a gospel singer. So I'm involved in gospel and blues. In the book, I always say my mother was a gospel singer. She gave me the gospel. My daddy was a gigolo, and he gave me the blues. But when I tell a story, I'm a little girl, a little black girl all the way from Selma, Alabama. Mother died at the age of 10, only child. So I was like Maya Angelou. I became withdrawn because I figured my mother was the only one that loved me. I turned against God and everybody else. How can God love me when he has taken away the only person that really loved me? My mother had moved to Detroit, and from Detroit, she died. From Detroit, I moved to Los Angeles, California with my mother's brother. And from California back to Selma, Alabama, where I got involved in the civil rights struggle. Now, I had closed up until the movement opened me up. So I didn't join the movement captured me. I finally found my place. I could do something. And it wasn't so much about singing. You know, when you're able to help someone else, you're really helping yourself more. So in the movement, going out in the rural areas and places where I grew up and didn't know anything about it, because I thought everything was all right in Selma. But when the movement and the people came, we had, as the whiteys would say, those freedom riders. They called everybody freedom riders. And when they came to the county of Selma, Dallas County, we didn't really have hotels, so they stayed in homes. We had black hotels, but they were so overcrowded at the time, and then freedom people didn't have no money. So the community opened up doors for them to stay. In our home, they turned the electric lights out. Bill was paid, but we were entertaining freedom folks. And that amazed me. I really got into the movement because I wanted to go somewhere else other than church all the time. That was my initiation for the movement. I don't have to go to church 7 days a week. And then he ended up singing all day Sunday. On Sunday, he was there all day. Sometime, and somewhere in this state now, it's still the same. Martin Luther King, they were talking about Martin Luther King, and I had made up in my mind I didn't need Martin Luther King to free me from Selma. I knew I was leaving Selma. But what kept me was when I saw the brutality. First, it was just to have a release and not to go to church. But when you look around and you see older women that you've known all your life, been slapped around and kicked down by white supremacists, police looking, but not doing anything. Here we looking, but we're nonviolent. What would you do? Could you stand there? All these things were taking place. That's what carried me back to the old songs. The things I said I wouldn't do when I got grown are the things I'm doing now. Those old songs. I used to hear my grandma, Jesus, keep me near the cross. I did not like that. I was like, I wanted rhythm. I wanted rhythm. Freedom gave me that rhythm. The rhythm to sing. I never looked at myself as a great singer. But today when I come and give you our history, and people sit up and look at me like I'm crazy, I have a problem. Because here we are, 51 years in our history. We've been fighting brutality since slavery time. And look where we are now. We fought for education. We fought for the right to have good jobs. We fought for the right for you all to be in these beautiful buildings tonight. Now, where and what are you going to do now? The ball is in your court. I'm not giving mine up, not yet. But I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing as long as I can. But the thing is, I want to pass on a history. And when I talk, I always say, I want to touch you. Do you know what I'm talking about? The spirit of being me and the spirit of being you have been used up. We're not using that spirit of fire anymore. We were 15 and 16 years old, and we would have a group of children, 10 or 15 of us. And you could hear us all the way to Montgomery, Alabama. But when you don't know, and when you have not been taught, and number one, you all don't have to go through what we went through. I came from a place when they said, nobody knows old slavery songs. The trouble I see, nobody knows. Now we ask the question, do you know? And if you know, how do you know? And what do you know? So I'm going to keep it open, not talk too much. For me, for a long time, I didn't like to talk. Chuck started me in that by me being with the Freedom Singers. He said, well, Betty, when we sing songs, you got to give people the history of the song. I said, that's your job. Now they tell me that Betty talks too much. So I'm going to close it, and I'm going to close it with, I woke up this morning with my mind set free. Lord, I woke up this morning with my mind, Lord, stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on free. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Well, I'm walking and talking with my mind. Stayed on freedom. I'm walking and talking with my mind, Lord. Stayed on freedom. I'm walking and talking with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 Come on and walk, walk. Come on and walk, walk. Come on and walk, walk. With your mind on freedom, walk, walk. You gotta walk. walk, you gotta walk, walk, you gotta walk, walk. Well now, oh, 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 walk, walk, walk. You gotta talk, talk, you gotta talk, talk, you gotta talk. Talk with your mind on freedom. Talk, talk. You gotta talk, talk. You gotta talk, talk. You gotta talk, talk. Well now, oh, 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 talk, 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 talk. Thank you.
Oh, why would I have to follow Bettie Mae? Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all here. And I can't tell you how lucky I feel to be here. My life has been full of luck. I was that lucky person that got myself from Southern California to Nashville, Tennessee in the spring of 1960, just in time for the sit-ins. And I have to tell you, it changed my life. Came on an exchange program from a college in California. Nashville had been already having 2 years of nonviolent training workshops with Reverend James Lawson. And that town was preparing to really take on the injustice there. And very shortly after I got to Fisk, the sit-ins began. 2 weeks after, or very shortly after the first sit-in in Greensboro. When you learn your history and you learn about Nashville, the most extraordinary group of freedom fighters came out of there. And a lot of it had to do with that training they went through. But these were people that would change this country and move on through all the rest of the years of the civil rights movement with great courage and great leadership. We had Diane Nash there, John Lewis, James Bevel, Bernard Lafayette, Angeline Butler, just many, many people who would not let terror turn them around, and when everybody else was ready to stop, they were ready to keep going. So it's a really important body of people, and I feel by the grace of God, I ended up there to begin to learn about this country with people like that. Very shortly, in Nashville, it was interesting. We had the sit-ins. We all went to jail. As Charlie said, the music kept us alive while we were in jail, kept us in touch with each other. Came out of jail. There was an economic boycott that was organized, a very, very strong one that went all through the spring. And by the end of May, the downtown lunch counters and restaurants had integrated, and it was really this powerful force of the movement that got started there in Nashville that brought that about. It was only the beginning, but it really was an example of what you can do, calling attention to the problem, and then with this economic boycott, putting a lot of resistance where it hurt into the community and brought about a great change. What I really want to tell you about is after that, in April, first part of April, there was a workshop that brought together people from around the South, people just your age. These were the college students and some high school students who were stepping out. And there was a workshop called at the Highlander Folk School in Monteagle, Tennessee, a really important gathering place in those days because it was one of the few places where black and white people could come together and really strategize about the changes that needed to come in the South and that were beginning to come. So this workshop, April 1st to 3rd, brought together about 60 or 70 people from around the South, young people who'd been involved in sit-ins. And the whole idea of the weekend was to tell each other what was going on from community to community. This is way before the internet. We had to talk to each other and share experiences. And the staff at Highlander, their job was to ask us what we'd been experiencing and challenge us to think about what we were going to do next, you know. And so it was a very crucial and important weekend. And the role of music at that workshop was very, very important. Prior to that, we really didn't have what I would call freedom songs, unless we go where Worth is going to take us tomorrow. The freedom songs really were living in the Black South ever since Black people were in the South. The spirituals and so many of the songs already spoke to freedom, but we didn't have what we now think of as the freedom repertoire. And at that workshop, there was a volunteer on the staff at Highlander who had been active in the labor movement and knew a lot of songs. And whenever we got tired of talking, he began to teach us songs that were going to become very useful to us when we went back to our communities. He taught us, I'm going to sit at the welcome table and keep your eyes on the prize, and we shall overcome. And that was Guy Carawan. That was the person who later on would become my life partner, and we would move on through time and continue spreading songs, but also beginning to record the songs and get them around and document the songs in little songbooks and hold workshops, mostly sponsored by Highlander, that would bring together the song leaders from all the different communities so that we could learn each other's songs. And so it was a really important time in history, and I think the things that happened during those next few years really brought a lot of change to this country. And as everyone here has said, there are many more changes to come, but I think reflecting on how very young people began to shake this country up and sing while they did it is something worth thinking about and, taking it where it can go now. Okay. That's it. I'm not going to end with a song.
Yeah, thank you, Candie, and other panel members. I'm in select company here. Almost everybody, as Charlie has said, has championed, not only championed freedom, but they have championed it in jail. And so as I sit here, I'm thinking kind of about some of those experiences. And as you see me shiver, it's not from the jail experience. In fact, I use the jail as a place to rest. If you work with these people in organizations, sometimes you are happy to go to jail because they had you working morning and night, morning, noon, and night, I suppose. Let me do this though. Who can tell me where is Formosa Avenue? Is someone else, please? No, I know you know. Is there someone who knows where Formosa Avenue is?
You got one hand over here.
Right there. Right there. Where
One back there.
What? Oh yeah. Where is it? Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. I was born there. Right. So I wanted to share with you the fact that I was born damn near on campus. Yeah. So what was called North Carolina College for Negroes, North Carolina College at Durham, North Carolina College, North Carolina Central University has been my home, since early years. This is a special place to me. And so this campus is special, and you are special because you're here today. And it makes me really feel good to be at home. And I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for that, for being here to welcome all of these fine people who were involved in a movement that is part of a long and continuous struggle, not just a recent struggle, not just the modern civil rights movement, but we're talking about a movement that goes back to through the years, and struggles of people for liberty and for freedom. And one thing I remember from 407 Formosa, where I was born, is that I was among all these people that were a little bit different from me. My father was a farmer, and he drove a Jeep in. We had some land out where Hillside High School is now, and he would drive his Jeep out, and he would work on the farm all day. And he was a landowner, however. He was not a poor man, but that's what he did. The only thing we would need in our house, other than what we provided ourselves, was coffee and sugar. Coffee and sugar. We had everything. We didn't need the doctor. My mother would go out back, and she had a herb garden, you know. So the whole idea of self-sufficiency was something that I took for granted in members of my family and in my community. But then there were some people who had not just what they needed, they had more than they needed. And at an early age, I knew the distinction between someone who had what they had to have to survive and what when my dad had talked about subsistence farming, it's what the agriculture department talked to him about. And he said, you mean survival? You mean survival farming? He said, I've been doing that all my life. And I've been teaching people how to do that well, how to come together and pool their money together, their labor together, and get land and control their community and be self-sufficient. And at that time, what they called the freedom movement had to do with, I think they characterized it as uplift, And one of the poems or songs that I remember that illustrated that was James Weldon Johnson's "Lift Every Voice and Sing," which at one time was considered the Negro anthem, right? It was called the Negro anthem. Lift every voice and sing. It was very important to me, and it was a song that was sung at the beginning of a program. Actually, it was sung in many cases at the beginning of organizing attempts in Selma, Alabama. We didn't initiate that. The local people initiated that. People from your community, Betty. And I guess I should say something about my organizing attempts and experience, because I ended up, not because of my concept of self-sufficiency, but because of the concept of freedom that I learned, both in the schools and in the communities and in the rural areas of North Carolina where my father worked and preached. I learned that there was a freedom dynamic that happened within places where he traveled. And he was a presiding elder in the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church. And that means he had to have quarterly conferences. He had at least 10 churches that he went to. And sometimes he would do the same sermon at each of the churches. So I memorized some of his sermons. But I noticed he would keep the sermon the same, but he'd change the songs. And that would confuse me. And I asked him, I said, well, Daddy, why did you use this song today? Why did you sing this song today? He said, because that was the song to sing. He said, that's the song they wanted me to sing, right? So he was singing what was appropriate to an audience, not what was appropriate to his repertoire. And I learned that also from him. I'm not doing that right now with you. But earlier we did do something that is reflective of what my father did. And that was when this wonderful singing group came up. And thank you. I want to thank the director of that group. Well, I want to thank the group and its leadership. But what happened was that we were with that group. We knew that was a fantastic group, but we did not participate. We were not participating with that group. And what I was trying to do was what? What was I trying to do when I stood up and said, I took over your group. I asked them to come back and do another verse. And then what happened? They came back, and what happened to you? You got involved, right? Now formulaically, by formula, that seems very simple, doesn't it? Or does it seem complex? Either way, that works. That works. When we are involved in something, it just seems better than when we are listening to it. When we are not just an audience, but when we are a congregation. Let's use that word. Give me another word. We are a part of a participatory group, right? SNCC, in its singing and in its organization, stress participation, being involved, but also being connected in such a way that you were connected not just to some people who were sitting before you speaking, but you were, my son is here, between two fine-looking ladies, and I'm Leah. Would you ask him to stand? Right. Attorney William Worth Long from Atlanta, Georgia, and I would have my daughter stand, but she could not come to her alma mater at North Carolina Central University. This is her home, and I'm going to end here, but that one thing, if I don't say anything more, and if you don't hear anything more from me, the whole idea of participatory practice at Smithsonian, I didn't say anything about what I did in the movement, but I did a lot of it by default. After the movement, I had no skills other than taking people to the jail. Right. So I decided, what am I going to do? And I said, well, I looked at what I like to do. And one of my hobbies was collecting music. I started it when I was 15 years old over in Chatham County in North Carolina. I started recording people playing blues and a cappella singing, quartets and congregational singing. And I said, well, let me see if I can do some of that. Find a way to do that and also eat. Eat 3 times a day. So I started working with Smithsonian Institution as a researcher. I did ethnographic research at Smithsonian. I started in 1970, and I still do something there. I found that the filmmaking, and we have some of that going on now, that was being done wasn't from the inside out. It was from the outside in most cases. And the story I wanted to tell was the story of people from the inside out. So I got their stories first, and then help them help me to make a story. And I helped make film with Alan Lomax, The Land Where the Blues Began, which is a blues film, with Chris Choi of New York University, a film on Chinese in the Mississippi Delta, Mississippi Triangle. And then in between that, I decided I'd do records. So I did a record on Robert Johnson with the director of Smithsonian's Festival of American Folklife. And I followed that with a record of the songs of struggle, world musics of struggle, We Shall Overcome, which featured, among others, the Freedom Singers, Chuck and Bettie Mae Fikes and others. And then I did something else, but my time has run out, right? And I want to thank you.
And I want to thank the panel for their contributions and sound. The clock is ticking. I want to give you the opportunity to ask questions of people up here on the panel. There's a mic there. You merely need to step up to it and pose your question either to individuals on the panel or to the panel in general. Surely there are questions or things you would like elaborated on from members of this panel. I'm sorry, my glasses aren't working. Walking up to the mic now. Okay. Somebody, yeah.
My name is.
Step up to the mic right there.
My name is Aaron Watkins. My question is, who inspired you?
Who is?
Who inspired you to all the panel members?
Well,
Who inspired you all?
Who inspired you?
very briefly, I like to say, my father inspired me. My father said to me, son, you must always stand up for what is right, even if you are the only one standing. And I looked at that, it said to me, I have to stand up against all of that which was wrong. So it was those few words that motivated and inspired me to go down the road that I have gone down and is still going down, trying to make things better over these past 56 years.
Anybody else on the panel want to?
Yeah.
Well, well, my father and my mother, they always told us to stand up for what we believed in, hold your head up, and you're just as good as anyone else, and don't let me see you acting otherwise, as you're going to have trouble out of me. But the one who inspired me, the situation that inspired me to get into the movement was Emmett Till's murder. You know, when they just mutilated that kid and put that wire and that metal wheel around his neck and threw him in the river. And when I saw that, I was sick because I knew it was me. We were the same age. That was me. And nobody was going to do anything about it. And that's what inspired me to do something. Did
you want to say something? Use the mic, Worth.
Yeah. I went into Selma, Alabama, the day after 4 little girls were killed in Birmingham, Alabama. And what I found there was even though the organization, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, had taught freedom songs and taught organizing methods to the students, was that the leaders from the SNCC were not there. But the students spontaneously had decided in response to what happened in Birmingham that they were going to march down themselves, not only in protest of what had happened, but also for the right to vote. And they had organized it themselves. And people like Bettie Mae Fikes, when I got to Selma, had folk getting ready to march downtown in Selma, Alabama, in one of the first major demonstrations that was to happen. And that was youth-led. So what I did, I think I was with Julian Bond at that time, is I gave him my wallet. And I joined the line with these youth, and knowing that I was going to have to go to jail. And I went to jail with them and followed their leadership. And one of the reasons that movement was a success and is a success and is remembered is because of students taking the initiative themselves and then organizing not just other students, but their families, their parents, their neighbors, in such a way that we developed a major movement. This was in 1963. This is before a mass movement happened. That inspired me then, and it inspires me now.
There's an important point to be made in terms of your question, and I'd like to make my one contribution to this conversation, and that is what's often missed about the movement. And I was a SNCC field secretary in Mississippi from 1962 until 1967. And the important point to make about the movement raised by your question is that as much as the movement challenged white supremacy and racism and segregation, just as important is the fact that what you saw looking at the movement was black people challenging themselves within the black community. Because that's what you saw when you looked at the sit-ins. You saw people like yourself challenging, and they were raising, if you're looking at them, well, what are you going to do when you're faced with segregation? I tell people I was kidnapped by the Mississippians because I had no intention of being in Mississippi. I paused in the state to introduce myself to the sit-in students. And one of these students, Lawrence Guillotte, who would become chairman of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, I told them I was on the way to Texas for a workshop on civil rights. I'm from Washington, D.C. And Guillotte was a big guy, then got up out of his seat, and those of you who know Guillotte know his whole style, and he hovered over me with complete disdain. And he said, and I never will forget the words, "You're going to Texas for a workshop on civil rights? What's the point of doing that when you're standing right here in Mississippi?" And God was getting ready to go up into the Delta. And I got the message. If you're serious, you'll stay and work with us. If you're not serious, you'll go off in Texas and chatter about civil rights. And I decided to hang with them for a while, not realizing once I started that I wouldn't get out of the state for another 5 years. But the lesson is, and this is what inspires me, is people like Hollis Watkins, Native Mississippians, Fannie Lou Hamer, all these people my age who are challenging me to do something that got me to do something. And I think that's the story of every single person sitting at on this panel. And I'm done for the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tyra Scott. I think a couple of years ago, I was asked by one of the professors over the arts and humanities to participate in a play called Homegirls about 9 people at Fisk University who started doing sit-ins in response to what happened at A&T at Woolworths. So they had me learn "Keep Your Eyes on the Prize" to sing by myself, a cappella, and it really spoke to me. So I was wondering if there was more of a story behind the creation of that song, and also what song in particular speaks to you the most to this day.
Well, thank you. And maybe you'll sing it before you sit down. I know one really wonderful story about "Keep Your Eyes on the Prize." And it has to do, again, with my husband, Guy, who was working at Highlander, and he knew the song from the labor movement, and it was "Keep Your Hand on the Plow, Hold On." And he had a wonderful assignment from Highlander to go to the South Carolina Sea Islands off the coast of Charleston and be the driver for Mrs. Septima Clark, who was running the citizenship school program that Highlander helped get started in the Sea Islands. And Guy was a musician and loved music, and he loved taking Mrs. Clark to the citizenship schools where they used music, but he also wanted to hear all the music he could hear, because those islands are full of some of the oldest and richest Black music in this country, beautiful traditions. So one day he was using that song in the citizenship schools, and a woman, one of the very first women down there to become a registered voter, Mrs. Alice Wine, came up to Guy and she said, "Oh, we know a different echo. We sing 'Keep Your Eyes on the Prize.'" And Guy liked that, and so he began to teach that as he went around with groups in the movement, and that's the version that became so popular. And later, it was recorded in some recordings, and Guy played the recording for Mrs. Wine, and she could not believe that she had anything to do with putting, the prize in "Keep Your Eyes on the Prize." So it's a wonderful story. Do you want to sing a little bit of it?
Okay.
Do you?
Paul and Silas were thrown in jail, had no money to pay their bail. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on. Paul and Silas began to shout, jail popped open and they walked out. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep
My name is Lawrence Horn, and my question for you was, being that you are, SNCC, and y'all lived through that movement, I was born in '96, so I only learned about the apartheid in South Africa and stuff like that, but I know that music was a huge part of that revolution as well. So I wondered if y'all could talk about the similarities and differences in, I guess, our struggle or their implementation of music in the movement.
Anybody want to?
I can't do that right now.
Music was the motivating force, the lifeblood of the movement. It's often been said if it wasn't for the music, there wouldn't be a movement. And I can't say enough about the music in response in the music. It went hand in hand. We got courage from that music. Like you said before, which side are you on? That was a song that we would sing to give us courage. A lot of those songs we would sing when we were in a dire situation. We'd sing those songs and we'd get courage, and to move on, do what we had to do. And keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. So if it wasn't for that music, that I doubt that we'd had the courage and the stamina to do the things that we did.
I lived in Tanzania, East Africa, in the early 1970s, and I had a lot of interaction with what was then called the Black Consciousness Movement of South Africa, who were young people like yourselves. Most of the older leadership was either in jail or in exile. And one of the things, they knew a number of the songs from the movement here. And I had lots of discussions with them. They paid attention, both, particularly when Stokely shouted out Black Power. They paid attention to the movement here in the United States, and they embraced a number of the songs, not just We Shall Overcome, but Keep Your Eyes on the Prize and other songs, because it's a little told story, the kind of interaction that was taking place in the 1970s between the activists, young activists in South Africa in particular, and Southern Africa in general, and black activists here in the United States during this particular time period. And music was a piece of that interaction.
In order to get the job done that needed to be done, we knew that you had to wake up every morning with a certain mindset. And that was determined based on how you could truly respond to the song that we sang. We asked one another the question, say, how did you wake up this morning? If you didn't come back with, I woke up this morning with my mind it was stay on freedom. Oh, well, I woke up this morning with my mind it was stay on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stay on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. You went down through walking and talking. I'm singing and shouting. I'm preaching and teaching. In regards to any and all of the things that you were going to be doing, we knew that if your mind was not staying on freedom, something was going to be overlooked, not carried out.
And may I interject? Is that the question that you asked about apartheid in Africa?
Right.
Well,
Use the mic, Betty.
a struggle is a struggle wherever you are. That's why the music of struggle, the same music sung in different languages, are all about the struggle. It might be a different struggle, but it's the same struggle because a struggle is a struggle. Whether you're in Africa, whether you're in London, wherever you are, like I said earlier today, that's why We Shall Overcome is national. No. I woke up this morning So whatever country, whatever state you come from, and the only reason the spirit is not high here tonight, you have not experienced anything yet, but you're getting ready to.
Blessings. Good evening. Thank you for your time. It's an honor to hear from y'all. I'm Grace Nichols. I'm currently the Cultural Organizing Fellow for an organization called Southerners on New Ground, also known as SONG. And I'm going to be at Highlander next weekend for the 85th homecoming. So I'm going to be co-facilitating a workshop on utilizing, being part of the national movement to end money bail as interventions to dismantle the prison industrial complex. I really appreciated the comment of particularly the Freedom Singers being more than entertainers, being motivators and being organizers. So I'm curious, what did the conversations look like as far as the strategy, the political education that came along with the singing? What I love so much about what I do is the multifacetedness of creative arts and creating the healing elements, the community building elements. But when y'all would go in and sing somewhere, what were the actions surrounding that? Was it like, okay, you know, a lot of times we'll have somebody hand out flyers or, you know, a specific kind of program. I'm curious what that looked like for y'all. Thank you.
Well, when we did a concert, like I said before, we used our music as an organizing tool. And we didn't get back off of that. We'd say that. And what we would do, it was tell people what we needed and what needed to be done. And whether it was raise money, whether it's get involved in their own communities, whether to come down south. But they had to get involved some kind of way. And that's the kind of thing that we did. We got people involved in movement. And we used songs as a motivator, an organizing tool in order to get them in there. They could hear a song, they would get the spirit of that movement, the spirit of it. And through that spirit, we got people to move, to do something in their own communities, come down south, and so forth. So that's one of the reasons we say we use our music as an organizing tool, as a motivator, and an organizing tool to get people to move.
I just want to say thank you for continuing to be doing work, you know, through your organization. The organizations that I started, Southern Echo, have in the past done workshops and training with song. And it's good to know that you're still pushing on.
Hi. Thursday is the first day of early voting for the primary locally, and NCCU has a very low turnout usually, and I hope you can encourage people to vote. There's a student, an NCCU student here, a grad student over in public administration, is running for city council, and a former professor here, Pierce Freelon, so vote Freeman and Freelon, and he's still teaching African American studies over at UNC, but he's running for mayor here, and people need to know about it. I've been out today on campus that people don't even know where to vote, how to vote. You just go down to the law school. You can register if you're not registered and vote all at once. It takes you 5 minutes. Register and vote. It's quick and easy, and you should do it. People died to give you the chance to vote. Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maya Clinton, and I guess you all have kind of hinted on this, but do you feel that activism today is in need of more music?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, 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 yes. The thing today is...
Wait a second, Betty.
Oh. We got quite a few. We can't say that things are not being done today. We can't say that the children, well, the younger generation are not doing anything. But what is so lacking today is the music. We fought for education. And like I was saying, the reason you all are not on fire tonight is because you have not witnessed any hardship. You have not been to the point where, you know, when you wake up in the morning, you don't know whether it's going to be your last day or not. You don't know anything about that. And that's too much to wait to carry at 15 and 16 years old. And not only that, is the weight of seeing loved ones beaten, and there's nothing you can do about it. But the only thing that we done back then was to pray and to sing. And the music is not here anymore. You know, the spirit of music. Everybody's singing. We weren't performers. We were singing from the heart, the spirituality. And I've been in a lot of marches, and I witnessed a lot of people marching, but it's dead as a doorknob. It's really, and it's frustrating. When you go out, I'm not saying I have never looked at myself as a great singer, but it's something about the sound of music that can just open up the inside of a person and draw everyone outside in. And up until we get to that, before you can free anyone else, you got to free yourself. And we have not got there yet, because now we're copycats. You know, we're, ooh, like, don't go there, Betty. We have not got there yet. But that's the thing that we need. Spirituality, music, and prayer. That saved us 50 years ago. It's the only thing gonna save us today. And Jesus Christ, you all don't know what's on the way. You better get a song in your heart. I'm telling you, you better get a song in your heart. All these institutions, all these good teachers that's teaching you are not gonna save you. We're going to a place where the only thing is gonna save you is Thank you.
While you're still there, I want to ask you a question. Because we had some of this discussion earlier today, those of us around the table. I'm curious to put this to you. I've been spending over the last year some time with both the BYP 100 folk and the Dream Defenders in Florida, where I live. And what I've noticed in their gathering, they have a lot of very political chants and spoken word rhythms. And one of the questions we were wrestling with earlier today is, to what extent is that the equivalent of freedom songs in the 21st century? You know, does it evoke the same kind of feelings of spirituality and emotion? And does it get beyond the group the way freedom songs did, in the sense that the music, the freedom music of the 60s, you know, reached the community more than just SNCC or more than just core?
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to what you think about the chants that also define a lot of young black activism today.
I wouldn't really be an expert on chants, or I wouldn't say I was an expert on spoken word. I've delved deep into spoken word a little bit, but I'd say, like, for me, just listening to certain people speaking, like certain spoken word pieces, I've like felt touched deep and have like evoked like strong feelings. So I feel like those pieces, if they were like presented outwardly in the community would be similar to the effect of music, but not the same feel, because as you were saying earlier, it kind of lacks participation.
I just want to leave this, and I'm hoping that and praying that we all will take heed of it. It's too many of us that have bought into the whole notion and saying of a few people that our young people ain't about nothing and ain't gonna do nothing. Too many people have been, and they said, let's go back and think about the 60s. But I have you to know, one by one, there's a lot more activism from young people today than it was back in the 60s. Take the whole state of Mississippi. If you extract the 1964 Summer Project out of the scenario, there never was a time when there was more than 23 to 25. I'm putting forth the number 25, but Charlie here has counted the folks up and down, and he has only found there to be 23. That's how many of us deal with the whole state of Mississippi. I can today take you into counties in Mississippi where we can find 23 active young people in that one county. So don't fall for, as we say, the okie doke, and know who we are and prove it through our action. And once you begin to work with young people, people in general, you can add up the numbers and say, hey, look what they did in this county back then. We are twice that number right now. So I just wanted to put that out there so some of us who get discouraged real early can back up off of that and say, I got it, and I'm going to get more than what I got. I'm going to bring some of y'all so y'all can get it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to be the last one. I didn't want to stand because of my knee. But I have a quick question for you all. The previous events in Durham, including the statue and the other monuments that people have come now to have attention to and want to act on them, how do you guys feel about Durham community coming out and doing those activities?
The Confederate statue?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I have a view about how the argument should be made. I've noticed that the argument is usually made around slavery, because all those guys were slavers. But I would like to see pushed forward more prominently the fact that these statues are statues that people who rebelled against the United States government, and not only that, launched a war in which more than 600,000 people were killed. So one question is, well, why would you want to put up a statue to people like that? I wish that was included in the argument. I think you'd get further in some ways with that argument. Otherwise, you get this kind of stupid stuff that Trump says, well, George Washington had slaves, which is, not totally irrelevant. But the fact that these people were responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people is a persuasive argument, I would say. I don't know.
Sorry, I should ask her because it's underway already.
Yeah. Yeah, why don't you do that?
So, a few of Durham community members took it upon themselves, and they went and they had a movement. Like, they all came together and they went and they did something about how they felt. And they wanted to take down the Confederate statue because they didn't agree with what the statue meant. because once they realized what it meant to them, they didn't want that around their community. So they went and they took down the statue, basically was what happened. And went to jail, yes.
I'm fine with that.
And all I got to say is that is, keep on pushing. You can't stop now.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Wendell Tabb, Theater Director with Hillside High School. I wanted to first thank you all for being here. I have one voice here. This is my acting troupe from Hillside that actually write a play each year on the civil rights movement. And so we are researching a lot, and that's why they are here, to study, listen to you, take back, and then put information in that they can continue to carry. The problem that we have a lot of times, even here in Durham, that we put on a show every year of the history and the struggle, but we have to work extremely hard to get people to come and listen to it. And these are, 15, 16, and 17-year-olds who are doing it. So what advice will you give them to continue and don't get discouraged, but to keep that fight going?
Don't get discouraged. Keep that fight going.
That's it.
You can't give up. Today, well, we're not interested in things that would carry us forward today. We don't have the participation of the communities. And we don't know how to rally around the communities. 50 years ago, we would go through the communities, well, pretty much like they do when you're voting for the president. Going through the communities, making them aware of what we're doing. But the thing is, today is so different than it was 50 years ago and 51 years ago. So only thing you can do, what I tell everybody, just keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. I'm a blues singer and a gospel singer, but when I go to see a blues artist today, it's about 10 or 15 blacks. And the place is crowded with every other nationality. We as black got to know that our heritage and culture is based on our spiritual gospel and blues. Jazz is more like a talk music, that's what Charles did. But the thing is, if we give up, it's like giving up a dream. We don't know what tomorrow is going. The old folks used to say, we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We don't know what the next minute is going to bring now. So if you don't live life to its fullest starting now, we're afraid to speak because we've been taught to live on the system that society say we're supposed to be. As a young woman, if you have not married at the age of 20, you graduated from high school and probably into college, but at a certain age, you become an old maid. And people are getting aware of these things that is pushed on us. That's not necessarily our life. So my thing is to every school I go to, I had a little young fella after I did a lecture there, 10 years old, and I was telling him about the bus rides. And when I was finished, he came up to me and he said, Ms. Fikes, I promise you, I won't repeat the past. So that's what we got to do, is not repeat the past, but build on the past. Don't give up now. If you see something wrong or see something that you can do, then start doing that. And if people see you doing it, some people will criticize and some will go with you. But if that's what you feel is right for you, that's what you got to do. And my brother, you're doing the right thing. I thank you. And I thank you all.
I'm sorry, but I'm Leah Wise, and I'm a retired organizer. But what I want to say is, Chuck was talking about how you use a performance opportunity as an organizing opportunity. And so if you think about your performance opportunities, how do you organize in the community to have people present? So one way to think about it, at least what we used to do, is try to involve children who sing, inviting different churches and their choirs or little dance groups. When you bring kids to be a part of your performance, you bring their parents and their families, and you have an audience. And so it's just as a strategy, you think about who do you want to most reach and try to reach what is in those neighborhoods to come. But when you do that, it's, you have a presence. So that's worked for us.
Yes, I was going to say, you take your program to where people are. If you have to go to a school, you take it there. If it's a community group, you take it there. Anywhere that you can get an audience that will listen to you. And that's how you're going to build up on your participation. The more people know about you and what you are doing, the more people will support you.
I just want to say, we should not shy away from the hard questions. A lot of us is afraid that we're going to get these hard questions and we won't be able to deal with them. But if you go after preparing yourself, you'll be successful. Now, out of all of my 56 or 7 years of working in the movement, the hardest question that I've ever had proposed to me was a one-word question. And that question came from this guy right here that just dropped his head with the blue shirt. I said to him, I wanted him to do something. That hard question that he proposed to me was, why? And I tried to deal with why. And he said, why? It just became a why to everything that I said. And I guess the Spirit began to communicate between the two of us. When I got to about the 15th or 16th why, I mentally said, if this boy asks me why one more time, it's going to be the end of him. And when I gave the answer of why, he said, okay. Went on about what he's about. So don't be afraid to answer and deal with the tough questions, because whatever is needed is within us.
So can we give a round of applause for SNCC veterans? And to North Carolina Central University, Department of Political Science, and the SNCC Digital Gateway Project, Center for Documentary Studies, the people, yourself. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. for North Carolina Central undergraduate students, in room 146, there will be a separate conversation with SNCC veterans, a more informal conversation, in room 146 tomorrow at 10 a.m. So if you're an undergraduate student, you're interested in talking more directly with these wonderful people on the panel, room 146 is where we'll be meeting. And also, please don't forget, we have an incredible book here. That please, I advise you to go to the table and read up and see whatever way you can contribute or you can get that important knowledge. But once again, thank you all for coming. The tapes, books, you name it. Thank you all for coming. This was a great program, and see you next time.